Well, what's up, guys? We're going to talk about Enneagram Type 1's, the perfectionist, the reformer, and we're going to talk about how to get along with me. How do you get along with me? I want to be your friend, but I want you to, be the friend the way I want you to be. So, in this series, we're just going to talk about maybe some tips about being a friend to a one, or being a brother, or a spouse, or a parent, child, whatever. The holidays are upon us and we're going to be together with family. So you probably got some ones in your family. And how can you crack the code to have a positive interaction with this person that you love when they are a type one? Yes, sometimes ones can be a little difficult. They can be a little critical and they can sometimes be a little hard to, be around, as all of us can. Don't get upset. We're just getting started. So I'm going to take a second and look at this book. I'm looking at the book, The Enneagram Made Easy. It's got a little list in here called How to Get Along with Me. And there's one of these for each of the types. And they're not very exhaustive, but that's okay because I have my own list. So I'm going to look at this list, and then when we're done with the basic 6 or 7 points they put here, then I might add a little bit that I was thinking about how to get along with a type 1. So here's the first thing it says. It says, take your share of the responsibility so I don't end up with all the work. Actually, that's probably pretty true. It's weird when I talk to ones in marriage relationships or dating, whatever, and we talk about the 10 basic needs that we all have in a relationship. It's interesting that ones often really value when their spouse meets their need for domestic support. And that is, think of all the things that have to be done in order to take care of a family. Meal preparation, laundry, walking the dog, mowing the lawn, of course, going to work and, getting an income and all those things. But it's so interesting that ones who are the greatest providers often of domestic support really value that. Like, if you want me to love you, I need to see you working. I need to see you getting these tasks done, being responsible. And if you don't help me, then I end up having to do this all myself because, whoever cares the least kind of controls the relationship, right? And so if I don't care if the fence ever gets fixed, or I don't care if the basement or the garage ever gets sorted, well, then it's going to fall on you because you want to see those things done. You want to see those things improved. And so if you want to connect with a one, go out there and work with them. Go do some task that they're wanting completed. And I just like the way it says it. It says, take your share of the responsibility so I don't end up with all the work. Now, I would just say, ones, if you really want us to help you, then you have to lighten up. We're not going to load the dishwasher exactly the same way you do, okay? And that's not bad. That's just a preference. So we want to be clear that not everything that we're upset about is really like, you sinned against me. A lot of it is just preferences, or maybe the person that you love made a mistake. And you got to lighten up because I'm not going to probably do the job exactly the same way you would. There's many ways to skin a cat, right? And so if you want me to help you, then you got to let me have a little bit of freedom in where I put these coffee mugs when I'm done washing them, okay? There's not, a rule that says that the coffee mugs have to be in this exact location. They could go on the other side of the shelf or on the shelf under the shelf where the coffee mugs go. Relax, okay? We want to help you, but then don't yell at us or get mad at us or make the angry face at us if we don't do it exactly the way you want us to. Okay, number 2, it says, acknowledge my achievements. And I don't know that I would have put the word achievement here. Maybe, but I think I probably would have said something like, acknowledge my responsibility, acknowledge my dutiful doing of all the things that need to be done. In other words, just give me a little bit of appreciation, a little bit of admiration. Maybe something like, hey, I just want to take a second and thank you for how detailed you were in getting this task done. You really came through for us. You really saved us here. And I really appreciate your effort. I really appreciate your integrity. I really appreciate your good work. I really, all that kind of stuff. It's not necessarily that same drive for achievement that threes have, or maybe some of the rest of us, but it could be. But I think it's more like, thank you for your sense of responsibility. Thank you for your dutiful carrying out the task. You're probably going to get that poo-poo response from a one like, hey, I was just doing what needed to be done. I was just doing what needed to be done. No, don't make a big deal out of this. Don't put me up on the stage. I was just doing anything any responsible citizen should have done. So I think that a little bit of like that positive reinforcement, that positive encouragement, catching them doing the right thing and then shining a spotlight on it. Hey, everybody, look, Marty's doing the right thing. Don't say it that way, but you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, Marty, thanks for, making sure that you grilled everybody's dinner. We really appreciate that. Thank you for, your house looks amazing. A little bit of that I think could go a long way. All right. Number 3, I'm hard on myself, so reassure me that I'm fine the way I am. Okay. So a little bit, positive reinforcement. And ones are typically hard on themselves. So, I guess I would just say here, if you are a one, try to be a little more gentle on yourself or gentle with yourself. Like, thinks that's probably some 9 wisdom, some type 9 right next to you. Be easy on yourself. When your truck breaks down because you didn't change the oil, right? A one is just stupid, 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 right? And then what would a 9 say? I don't know. I mean, I guess I just have a bad truck. I don't know. I don't know what happened. And I think, 9s in that way sort of insulate themselves often from having to be hard on themselves. And it could be to a fault with 9s, but it's probably a little bit of helpful wisdom for you as a 1. Soften it a little bit on yourself. Don't look at yourself in I can't tell you, don't look at yourself in such a critical eye. But I guess I would say raise awareness. Notice how critical you are with yourself and everybody else if you're not careful. But catch yourself being harsh, cruel, and critical. You probably just think you're being normal, but catch how harsh, critical, and cruel that inner parent is. Remember, that's not the voice of God that's scolding you in there. And if you could learn to laugh at yourself, remember, at your best, you look like a 7, right? Okay, so if you could learn to laugh at yourself a little bit and go, oh my gosh, I'm such a 1. Look at me. I'm literally like yelling at myself in here because I forgot to cross my T and dot my I, whatever it was. So, it could be of great encouragement if you live with a 1, if you can be soft and easy on them a little bit and help them, be a little bit more gentle with themselves. I'm hard on myself. Reassure me that I'm fine the way I am. Tony, relax. Everything's going to be okay. Tony, you did a great job. Okay. You should be proud of yourself. Whatever happens now, it's not really, notice that 9 wisdom again. It's not really in your hands. You did a great job. We're all proud of you. And, whether you get the award or not, or whether you get the promotion or not, just know that we, your family, are very proud of you. That could go a long way. That kind of speak could go a long way and helping that one. Tell me you value my advice. I think this goes true for type 2s as well. That 1-wing 2, 2-wing 1, the great advice givers out there on the Enneagram. They want to come alongside of you like a 2, right? And help you find the more noble right way to do things. And this actually is really helpful because you've aligned yourself with everything good in the universe, and the rest of us should probably hear that from time to time because maybe we're more focused on other things, and it would be wise to listen to that counsel because you probably have learned a lot along the way, and we would be wise to listen to you. And so when a 1 is teaching their moral lesson, which everything, by the way, to a 1-wing 2, and probably a little bit to a 2-wing 1, everything is an opportunity for us to learn a lesson. Let's just stop and think here. Kids, back when I was a child, and then it starts down this long lesson, right? This moral, the moral to the story. We're going to get to the moral of the story and how we can all, show up a little bit more integrity in life. That's beautiful stuff. That's grandfatherly dad wisdom, around the table, around the fireplace. And I think my grandpa was a 1. And, some of my mom, who was a 6-wing 5, some of her favorite memories were Saturday nights. Grandpa would get all the kids together, in the living room, and they would have a Bible devotion. And he would kind of go through his Sunday school lesson with his family before he taught it on Sunday morning. And that was some of her favorite memories. She talked about that all the time. And I think in some regards, it's just kind of a 1 being a 1. Let's gather 1-wing 2. Let's gather the family together and let's teach them something from the good book about being more responsible. Moses was a responsible leader, and you need to stop and think. We have opportunities to be responsible too. Well, Gene, go ahead. What happened to you in school this week? And wasn't that a great opportunity for you to learn to be responsible? No, I'm not trying to look, guys. I feel myself criticizing myself. Like, Tom, you're making fun of him. I'm not really making fun of him. I'm a 7. My speaking style is storytelling. And I'm not trying to lighten this or I guess maybe I am trying to lighten this, duh. But I'm not trying to humiliate or make fun of this. It's just kind of like how it plays out in my mind. So I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make fun of you at all. I really am not. Be fair and considerate as I am. Fair, just, do the right thing, considerate, 1-wing 2. And I think 9s are very considerate people too, of course. But just notice right on both sides of you as a 1, you have like the 2 nicest people in the world, right? 9s. Not every 9 is nice, not every 2 is nice, but just notice like the archetype: gentle, peaceful, understanding, kind, loving, attentive. And those are on both sides of you to, I think, soften a little bit the tendency to be harsh and just and rigid of a 1. It's there to soften it a little bit. And you do have both of those wings, and I would encourage you to really look in and explore how those wings can help you as a 1. Be fair and considerate as I am. And honestly, like an unhealthy 1 or a 1 under a lot of stress, not very considerate, very harsh, very critical, very demoralized and demoralizing. But at their best, of course, 1s, fair, just, righteous, good, considerate, wise, wisdom. Apologize if you've been unthoughtful. It will help me to forgive you. Apologies are so important. Everybody knows Gary Chapman's The 5 Love Languages. My love language is acts of service. Nobody wants to do that. Why do you have to have acts of service as your love language? But very few people know his other book, The 5 Languages of Apology, something like that. The 5 apology languages, the 5 languages of apology. And this actually can be very helpful for a lot of relationships when they're not doing well, is maybe you're not apologizing to your spouse in a way that feels meaningful to them. So you got to translate. You got to apologize. Like, for example, some people rush to forgiveness and asking for forgiveness. But if your spouse is somebody who needs you to admit wrongdoing, I'm not going to forgive you until you admit wrongdoing, or I'm not going to be able to forgive you until you take responsibility for your actions, or until you show genuine repentance, which is change. And I think one of the other ones was, let me make it up to you, restitution. And that could feel slimy if you need somebody to acknowledge wrongdoing, which I would think a 1 would probably want their partner to apologize in such a way that they admit wrongdoing. Hey, you know what? I was really wrong. I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have done this. I'm sorry. I think a 1 probably is going to want, admission of wrongdoing. They would respect that because 1s want to avoid wrongdoing. And for you to admit that you were wrong really shows that you are putting the other person first, because it's very hard for a 1 to admit wrongdoing. But if you rush to forgiveness or restitution, I can imagine you sort of spinning in circles with this person and never really them having a hard time forgiving you because they don't feel like you've ever really acknowledged what you did in the first place. Maybe I'm overanalyzing this, but whatever. Apologize if you've been unthoughtful. It'll help me to forgive you. Yeah. I don't want to just pretend like everything's, fine the way it is. I need some admission of wrongdoing and some penance of some kind, I could see that. And the last one in this book is gently encourage me to lighten up. Gently is probably the key word there. Lighten up and to laugh at myself when I get uptight, but hear my worries first. So to listen to those worries and those concerns, but then overall, like the point of the conversation might be, hey man, I think you're being a little hard on yourself. You did a great job. And, I think you're just going to have to relax and see what happens. So lighten up a little bit. That overall message of lighten up. Remember this as a 1. Sixes, this is true of sixes, it's true of 8s, but just think about, the fact that you're connected to 9 and 7. That kind of tells you everything you need to know, right? A little bit more don't worry, be happy. A little more don't worry, 9. And be happy, 7. I mean, at your best, as a 1, you look like a 7. You're probably going to have to lean into that 9 to get there. And so that don't worry, be happy. Lighten up, man. Don't take yourself so seriously. It's going to work out. It's not the end of the world. This isn't, a crisis. One thing it says here about relationships, it says, 1s at their best in a relationship are loyal, dedicated, conscientious, and helpful. They are well-balanced and have a good sense of humor. Now that guy right there is a well-balanced guy. And a sense of humor. 1s at their worst in relationships are critical, argumentative, nitpicking, and uncompromising. They have high expectations of others. Okay, now I wrote down my own list here. Some of it might overlap, but I was trying to think about, what do I think of? Maybe that the book didn't really talk about. So if you want to go a little deeper, you can stay with me in this video. If you're done, you're done. That's fine. You probably already turned it off. But if you want to go a little deeper, here's the kind of the points I came up with. Recognize that 1s strive for integrity. Recognize that and that kind of goes back to that point of acknowledge my achievements. So 1s, they often have a strong sense of trying to do things the right way, high moral standards. So acknowledging and appreciating their dedication and their determination and their commitment to excellence. Right now, they're angry and they're upset because this machine's not working right. But instead of seeing them losing their cool because they're upset, if you can see, wow, this person really values everything working properly. I mean, we do need people like that are dedicated to making sure everything's done correctly. And instead of being upset and hurt that they're being angry that the machine or the computer's not working right, flip it around and see the positive that they really are focused on trying to get things done correctly. A lot of people would just halfway do things and be satisfied. And, we don't need more of that in our culture. So isn't it awesome that somebody out there is dedicated to try to make things right? Acknowledge that. So you might say a sentence like this. I really admire, I wrote this down because I didn't want to get it wrong. So I wrote it word for word. I really admire how much thought and effort you're putting into making things right. Your attention to detail inspires me. And everyone just got this glow. Oh, this is what I've wanted to hear my whole life. Let me say it again, because maybe you need to hear it again. I really admire how much thought and effort you put into making things right. Your attention to detail and, really inspires me. And everyone just, it's this glow, hallelujah. Number 2, avoid criticism. I think that one actually wasn't on the list. It just said, be careful with how you, whatever, but criticism, I never criticize a 1, and I would say probably never criticize a 2 either. Most of us don't like criticism, but it's perpetually damaging. Not perpetually. It's multiplied in its damage on a 1. they're often so critical of themselves, trying to get things right and perfect. So you want to be mindful not to add to that self-criticism by being overly judgmental or dismissive of their efforts. And I realize sometimes ones can be very critical themselves, hypercritical maybe at times, but we got to be careful that we don't make it worse for them. We want to make it better. We want to make them less critical, right? And so we want to try to get them out of the environment of criticizing. No, we don't do that in this house. I don't do that to you, so maybe you could relax criticizing. Instead of, oh my gosh, why are you so rigid about this? Instead of that kind of a statement, you might say, hey, I can really see how important this is to you and to make sure everything's right. Could we explore maybe how to do this another way and get to those same results? Smooth, diplomatic, right? Next is be clear and be honest. Yeah, never lie to a 6, but don't lie to anybody. But yeah, don't lie to a 1 either. Um, they want to know that they can trust you and that you have some integrity. And if you're lying all the time and not being honest or taking responsibility for your actions or yourself, that's going to get you some demerits. You're going to get some demerits. So, ones value transparency and honesty and integrity, and lying is kind of the opposite of that, right? So, avoid ambiguity. 9s, you guys are very ambiguous at times. Well, a funny thing happened on the way to the office. So don't beat around the bush with half truths, white lies, ambiguous statements. Be clear and direct, while at the same time courteous and thoughtful in your interactions with a 1. I think things will probably go well for you. Not being overly casual about these important matters. They appreciate it when people are honest, and also I think follow through on their commitments. That's probably a big key too. So if you make a promise, stick to that promise, or at least acknowledge directly that you're unable to stick with that promise and explain yourself and your actions. That would go a long way in helping a 1 get along with you. Communicate promptly if something changes. Hey, just letting you know that I updated this. I don't want to surprise you and wake up the dragon, right? All right, so respect their need for structure. 1s tend to like things tidy, organized, structured, with principles and guidelines and rules, and all those things are very necessary. We might pride ourselves like, I'm independent and I don't need rules, but we all live by rules, guidelines, and structure. Whether it's formulated or not, or whether it's informal, we all have some structure and guidelines that we need in life. And I think 1s tend to thrive in organized and predictable environments where they're not always shocked with some grand new scheme. So they can become frustrated, as any one of us could, with chaos, instability. Oh, wow, that's very 7. Chaos, instability, impulsiveness. They could be frustrated with. I've always found it good to have a strong 1 in my life to help me, in leadership positions, to kind of talk through ideas, or, like if I had an administrative professional helping me, it would probably be good to have a 1. Show respect for their need for order by being yourself dependable and responsible, tidy, well organized. Those things are all going to go a long way in helping you get along with a type 1. Acknowledge their efforts. Here, in the book, it was acknowledge their achievements. But I think that might be, type 1s often feel unappreciated because they put so much effort into improving the world around them, and even like injustice or like social justice. Take time to notice the positive changes that they create. Put a spotlight on that and say, wow, this room looks great. Oh, wow, these files are so much better. Thank you so much for thinking of that. That's probably all it takes. Just a little bit of appreciation, a little bit of acknowledgement. They don't need a lot. They're not striving to figure out their worth and value so much. So thanks for taking the time to fix this. I really appreciate it. We've got a person in our church that does our church budget. That's a 1. She goes through meticulously, and it's actually a 1 and a 6 that do this together. I mean, perfect, right? And so just last night, I saw a copy of the updated budget, and I was like, hey, thanks for doing this. It looks great. I really appreciate it. I could have pointed out, there's a mistake right here. You spelled minister wrong. Minister. I didn't do that. I just said, thank you. Really appreciate it. It's great work. Just a little bit is all it takes. Be patient when they're stressed, under stress. 6s. 1s could become overly critical and rigid. So instead of arguing with them, that's probably not going to take you very far. Listen to them empathetically. Take a breath. Pause. Let them maybe get it out of their system. Get that out. Their frustrations. And then support without dismissing their concerns. Gently remind them to give themselves some grace. It's okay to relax. We're going to work through this. All right. Thanks for bringing that up. Let's look at it. If there's anything I need to apologize for, I should probably apologize for it. But if not, I don't need to apologize. Offer opportunities for collaboration. Working together. 1s love improving systems and making things better. So invite them to collaborate on projects. You might have to keep them informed of what you're doing and the changes you're making. And that could feel frustrating if you don't want to have to inform somebody. But I'm telling you, if you want to get along with this person and make things work, you're probably going to have to keep them updated. And then they're going to grumble when things are changing. Why do we have to do that? Why does this have to be this way? I don't understand. Blah, 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 blah. There's a better way to do this. But I think keeping them informed, in the loop, inviting them to collaborate on projects. I mean, realize they want to make things better. They genuinely want to make things right. We might disagree, though, on what right means for our organization or our institution. Encourage them to relax, encourage them to have more fun, encourage them to be more spontaneous. Show positive attention to positive activity, right? When you see them being playful and fun and easygoing and a little more fluid in their thinking, that's what you want to spotlight. So you might say a sentence like this, you've been working really hard, and how about we take a breather? Maybe just take a break and let's just do something fun together. Let's just go hiking together. Let's just go fishing together. Let's go ride 4-wheelers. I think also sharing that you like improving things too, that you value that. I think a sentence like, hey, I know we're working on this project and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can make this better. Can you imagine a 1 being like, what? You'd love to hear my thoughts on how we can make this better? Well, I've got some. And then they download, all the ideas or what needs to be done here. And then I guess I would just say before we end this video, one last thing about being careful about criticism. Seriously, like it's too much. When a type 1 critiques something, it often comes from a place of wanting to improve. Now, you may come across as being negative, picky, pessimistic, irritable, micromanaging, all of those things, judgmental, harsh. We might hear it as that. But if we could put ourselves inside that little brain of theirs, it's probably intending to come from a place of care, support, improvement. And if we could hear it that way, not from a desire to hurt feelings, try to separate the intent of the message from the delivery or the focus, and try not to focus on the maybe exactly what is being said, but the underlying reason or the underlying message. Now, I'm not trying to take 1s off the hook. Don't be rude. Don't be a jerk. Okay? Just because you're trying to be right doesn't mean you can't be a jerk. So don't be a jerk with people. I'm not trying to take 1s off the the hook here. You need to learn to be nice. You need to learn to be kind and thoughtful in how you present stuff. Take a deep breath. And remember, you're not perfect and nobody else is either. But when you have a 1 talking to you and they're being critical and harsh and all those things, try to translate what they're saying. Take the words they're saying and try to look at the heart underneath it. Like, oh, they're trying to make things better. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't need that? So if it feels too harsh, calmly communicate how you feel without becoming defensive yourself. Try to remain a little objective in your interactions with a one. Ones, let me say that I just love you guys. We need you in our world. We need people who will stand up to, make things right, better, organized, correct, and then inspire the rest of us with a little bit of righteous indignation at times. Remember, that's not the same thing as just you being mad because your preferences weren't realized. Notice the difference between mistakes, preferences, and actual sins. Most of the stuff that frustrates you in life is not sins against you or sins against God or sins against the culture. It's probably just somebody did something the way you don't like it, or they didn't tell you they were going to do it. So recognize those differences and save your righteous indignation for the real corruption out there, because it's out there. And, thank you. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you do. And, be gentle on yourself, love yourself, be positive. Make sure that what you're doing isn't just good work. Make sure it's meaningful work as well. And we'll all try to get along with you better. As always, be present to life. I'll see you next time.